The morning light barely touched the edges of the clouds when I pulled into my parents' driveway, my heart fluttering with nervous anticipation. Today was supposed to be the beginning of something special. I had worked double shifts for nearly 2 years, skipped holidays, turned down invitations, and saved every spare cent to fund this dream, a luxurious trip through Europe for me and my parents. Something to remind them that I was more than just the dependable daughter, that I mattered. I glanced at the clock. 2 minutes late. My mother, Marianne, was already on the porch, dragging her suitcase toward the car. I stepped out quickly, smiling, eager to help. "Sorry, Mom. Traffic lights," I said, reaching for her bag. But then the front door creaked again, and my world tilted. Jenna stepped out. My younger sister. My parents' golden girl. She was in yoga pants and sunglasses, pulling her own suitcase behind her like she was born for this trip. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Marianne's smile tightened, too cheerful for what she was about to say. "Oh, Isla. We thought Jenna could use the trip instead. She's been so stressed lately with the breakup and all." My body went numb. "Instead of me. I paid for everything," I managed to say. Marianne waved her hand like I was bringing up the weather. "You're always so busy, sweetheart. You can go another time. Jenna really needs this." Jenna smirked. "Thanks for understanding, sis." I stared at both of them. Then my dad, Richard, came out, silent, eyes to the ground, and handed me his suitcase. I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled. Controlled. "Let's get going then. If they wanted to cut me out, fine. But I wasn't going to make it easy for them." The drive to the airport was a blur of resentment wrapped in silence. Jenna's voice chirped endlessly about fashion in Paris and how she'd always wanted to see Rome in spring. My hands clutched the wheel so tight, I could feel the blood throb in my fingertips. My mother hummed along like nothing was wrong. When my dad finally spoke, "Thank you for driving us, Isla. I know this feels unusual." I nearly laughed. Unusual. That was how he chose to describe betrayal. When we pulled up at the drop-off zone, I helped them unload. My mother hugged me. "Thank you for being so understanding. This means a lot to us." And to Jenna. I looked at her face, then Jenna's, who smiled wide and smug. "You're the best, Isla," she said. "Well, not anymore." I watched them walk into the terminal. Something in me cracked. Something I'd spent years patching over with smiles and sacrifices. I sat in the car for a long time, staring at the steering wheel, hearing their voices echo over and over in my head. I had given everything, time, money, energy, only to be discarded for the one who always came first. When I got home, I opened my laptop, logged into every reservation site I used, and began clicking. Cancel. Refund. Cancel. Refund. Flights. Hotels. Everything gone in 10 minutes. My inbox filled with confirmation emails, and for the first time that day, I exhaled deeply. Let them explain this to the hotel concierge in broken French. Let them figure out how to enjoy a luxury trip they didn't pay for. 'Cause I was done. I was no one's backup plan. I was not their fixer anymore. The ride back from the airport felt like a funeral procession with no music, no tears, just silence. I didn't even play the radio. By the time I got home, the weight on my chest had shifted from rage to something heavier, something like liberation wrapped in grief. I unpacked the bag I had packed so carefully for the trip. Folded blouses I would no longer wear in Barcelona. The travel journal I bought in Florence, still blank. And a new pair of walking shoes I had broken in just for cobblestone streets. I placed them all back into the closet like souvenirs from a future I had been pushed out of. Then my phone started buzzing. Once. 5 times. My mother's name flashed across the screen. Then Jenna's. Then Dad's. They must have landed. I ignored it all. I went to the kitchen, made myself a cup of tea, and sat on the porch. The warmth of the cup in my hand was the only comfort I needed. The rest of the world could wait. By the 10th call, I finally checked the texts. "Isla, the hotel won't let us check in. The reservation is missing. What's going on?" Then another. "Call me immediately." And another, "This isn't funny. Fix it now." A laugh slipped from my lips. Not the joyful kind. The kind that rises from the ashes of exhaustion. They really thought I'd just keep fixing everything. Like always. Then came the voicemail from Jenna. "This is so petty, Isla. We're stuck here because of you. You need to fix this." Her voice was grating like fingernails against dignity. I deleted it without hesitation. The next morning I woke up to 27 missed calls. 17 texts. My phone pulsed with their desperation. But I felt calm. I had never felt so calm. I made pancakes, watered my plants, went for a walk. The silence became a balm. A clarity I hadn't known I needed. No more guilt-tripping voicemails. No more pretending everything was fine. Just me and the steady rhythm of my own life. But curiosity is a tricky thing. That evening I picked up my phone again. My mother's last message read, "Your sister is crying. Your father is humiliated. What you've done is cruel. Call us back." Then Jenna's, "Unbelievable. Just because you weren't invited doesn't mean you ruin it for everyone." There it was again. The assumption that I was the villain in their fairy tale. The fixer gone rogue. The servant who dared close the door behind her. When my phone rang again I answered. My mother's voice was a wall of fury. "Isla, what did you do? None of the tours are happening. The hotel says the bookings were cancelled." I sipped my tea slowly. "I cancelled them." Silence. "Then why? Why would you do that?" "Because," I said calmly, "you replaced me on a trip I spent years planning. You made your choice. Now live with it." "You're being ridiculous," she snapped. "We thought you'd understand." "Understand what?" My voice rose, the fire inside finally licking through the cracks. "That after 2 years of work you chose Jenna? Again. That I was expected to smile while you handed her my dream trip. I don't understand. And I'm not going to pretend anymore." I hung up before she could spin the guilt web again. Powered down my phone. Total silence returned. And this time I embraced it. For once, I wasn't Isla the good daughter. I was Isla the boundary setter. The protector of her own peace. And even if the silence roared louder than the voicemails ever had, I was ready to listen to it. I sat on the porch swing of my childhood home, coffee mug in hand, watching the storm clouds roll in, not in the sky but from the driveway. The taxi pulled up and out stepped my parents, weary and sunburned, dragging their overstuffed suitcases like anchors. Behind them, Jenna slammed the car door with theatrical flair, sunglasses perched atop her head like a crown. She scanned the porch and rolled her eyes the moment she saw me sitting there. I didn't move. I wanted them to see that I was unbothered, not because I wasn't hurt, but because I had no intention of letting them drag me back into the familiar loop of guilt and repair. For once, they would sit in the discomfort they created. "Well, I hope you're happy," Jenna snapped, tossing her suitcase down on the front steps. I took a sip of my coffee. Why would I be unhappy? I wasn't the one who spent a week in dingy hostels eating gas station sandwiches. My mother scowled. "Isla, that's not the point. The trip was a disaster. We had to downgrade every hotel. Tours were fully booked. Everything was chaos." "You mean everything was chaos without me fixing it for you?" I asked, finally setting my mug down. "Because that's what this really is, isn't it? You're not upset about the vacation. You're upset I didn't step in and clean up the mess." My dad crossed his arms, his voice lower but no less pointed. "You didn't have to cancel everything. That was extreme." "Was it?" I stood up. "Because I planned that trip for 3 people, me, you, and Mom. When you decided to exclude me, it became your responsibility. You don't get to enjoy what I built while pretending I don't exist." "You're being dramatic," Jenna cut in. "It was just a vacation." I stared at her, amazed at her ability to reduce everything to nothing. "For you, it was just a vacation. For me, it was the final straw. Years of putting you first. Years of being told to wait, to give, to be patient. I worked double shifts. I skipped promotions because I couldn't take the time off. I spent 2 years building something special for this family. And you took it from me like it was your birthright. My mother opened her mouth to reply, but I raised my hand. No, you don't get to talk over me this time. I've earned this moment. They fell silent. For once, truly silent. I'm not doing this anymore, I continued, voice steady. No more fixing. No more bending. No more being the emotional punching bag. You're overreacting, Jenna muttered. And you're underreacting to the fact that your entitlement is no longer rewarded, I shot back. I'm done, Jenna. You've always expected me to sacrifice for you, and Mom and Dad have always expected me to enable it. But that ends now. I picked up my bag from beside the swing. I stopped being your doormat the moment you left in my car for a trip I paid for without even saying thank you. My father took a hesitant step forward. Isla, wait. No, I said firmly. You'll have to wait this time. Because I'm choosing me. As I walked to my car, I could hear them calling after me. My mother's sharp voice, my dad's pleading one, Jenna's indignant protests. But I didn't turn back. I unlocked the door, slid into the driver's seat, and started the engine. As the house faded in the rearview mirror, I felt something remarkable. Weightlessness. For the first time in years, I was driving away not out of obligation, but out of liberation. The fixer had quit. And she wasn't coming back. The sky was a mellow gray when I pulled into my driveway. A quiet drizzle tapped against the windshield as if urging me to slow down, to breathe. I sat in the car for a moment, soaking in the silence. No one was asking me to fix anything. No one was calling my name with a need laced in guilt. Just the gentle rhythm of rain and the soft hum of my engine cooling down. Inside, the house was still. I hung my coat, placed my bag on the hook, and poured myself a fresh cup of tea. As the steam curled into the air, so did the tension in my shoulders. I had said what I needed to say. For the first time, I hadn't backed down. Later that afternoon, a knock came at the door. Light, familiar. I didn't have to guess. Only one person knocked like that. Grace stood on the porch with 2 cups of coffee and her usual tilted smile. Her red curls were tucked into a knit beanie, and her eyes sparkled with both concern and mischief. I figured you needed this more than I did, she said, offering 1 cup as she stepped inside. Lifesaver, I murmured, accepting the drink and leading her to the couch. She kicked off her boots and curled up beside me like she belonged there. So, how bad was it? I gave her a look and she laughed. That bad, huh? I took a sip and let the warmth settle in my chest before answering. Worse than I imagined. But also not as bad as I feared. I said everything. I didn't hold back. Grace raised an eyebrow, impressed. And how'd that go over? Like a lit match in a gas leak, I said, lips twitching into a smile. But I didn't blow up. I didn't scream. I just told the truth. Grace nodded slowly. That's the hardest part. Saying it without rage. Letting your hurt speak louder than your anger. I stared at the swirling foam in my cup. I told them I was done. And I meant it. No more fixing. No more giving and giving just to be cast aside. Grace reached over and gently touched my knee. You finally stood up to them, Isla. Not just in words but in spirit. That's huge. Her words sunk deep into me, quiet and anchoring. She was right. I hadn't just said I was done. I had acted like it. Had chosen myself. I leaned my head back, exhaling. I didn't think I could feel this light. It's like I've been carrying a weight I didn't even know was crushing me. Grace smirked. Welcome to the land of boundaries. Population you. I laughed. Genuinely laughed. The kind that fills your lungs with air you didn't know you were missing. Grace grew quiet for a moment, then added, They'll try again. Guilt calls. Apologies dressed in excuses. Maybe even tears. But you've already crossed the bridge. Don't look back. He nodded. I won't. I can't. We sat in silence, watching the rain. The sound no longer felt melancholic. Felt cleansing. Later, after Grace left, I sat at my dining table with a blank notebook in front of me. I wrote one word at the top, freedom. Below it, I listed everything I had put off because of them. Traveling alone. Taking that photography class. Learning Italian. Building a life that looked like me, not like someone else's idea of who I should be. The list grew quickly. And for the first time in my life, it wasn't terrifying to dream for myself. It was exhilarating. Tomorrow I decided I'd open the old travel spreadsheet, the one with all the reservations I had made and cancelled. But this time I wouldn't be planning for 3. I'd be planning for 1. Me. The morning sun filtered through my curtains, casting soft gold patterns across the floor. I had barely slept, not because I was anxious, but because something in me had shifted. I felt awake in a way I hadn't in years, like a fog had finally lifted. The silence in my house was no longer heavy. It was empowering. I pulled out my laptop and opened the spreadsheet that had once held all the carefully planned reservations. Flights, hotel stays, private tours. Every row was a piece of a dream I had built and then watched crumble at my family's feet. But as I stared at the columns of cancelled bookings, I didn't feel bitterness. I felt an unexpected thrill. I deleted every line. Then I opened a new tab and typed, solo travel ideas for women. The results were endless. Italy, Portugal, Japan, Morocco. I bookmarked a dozen articles and then leaned back, smiling. Could go anywhere. Do anything. For once, I wasn't waiting for someone to say yes, to make room for me, to approve my plans. I spent the day writing out my dream list. Not a to-do list. Not chores. Not family obligations. Just dreams. Take a solo trip to Italy. Sit by the Arno River and sketch. Learn to make homemade pasta. Watch the sunrise from a Tuscan hilltop. Sign up for a photography class. Submit a photo to a magazine. Start a blog about reclaiming your life. Dance in the rain without worrying what anyone thinks. Say yes to adventure even if it scares me. Say no even if it disappoints others. Every goal I wrote felt like adding color to a blank canvas. And each one, no matter how small, whispered, "You are worthy." I looked around the house. It still carried the echoes of a life I had lived for others. The hand-me-down couch from my parents. The art on the walls I never picked myself. The outdated curtains I never replaced because someone once said they were fine. I wanted to change it all. That afternoon I drove to a local boutique and bought a new rug. Bright, soft, and completely different from anything I would have chosen a year ago. I donated the couch. I ordered wall art that made me smile. For dinner, I tried a pasta recipe from an Italian cooking blog. It was terrible. I burnt the garlic. The noodles were overcooked. I laughed until my stomach hurt. There was something liberating about messing up without anyone judging me. I didn't have to get it right. I just had to enjoy it. By evening I had made one more decision. I would go to Italy alone. Not as a substitute plan, not to prove anything but to live. Fully. Freely. Unapologetically. I pulled out my passport, dusted off my suitcase and started packing. Not for an escape, but for a beginning. When I finally curled into bed, I opened my notebook again and wrote one final sentence beneath the list. This time the story starts with me. The departure gate was quiet, the usual bustle of announcements and suitcase wheels muffled by my own heartbeat. As I sat near the window, watching the tarmac light up with the golden hue of sunrise, it hit me. I was really doing this. No family. No guilt. No drama. Just me, my dreams, and a ticket to Florence. Boarding was smooth. I took my seat by the window and pulled out my journal. I glanced at the words I'd written the night before. This time the story starts with me. I traced the letters with my finger, letting them anchor me as the engines roared to life. As the plane ascended above the clouds, a smile crept across my face. I wasn't just flying across the world. I was soaring out of the past. When I arrived in Florence, the air felt different, crisper, lighter. The cobblestone streets buzzed with the energy of summer, filled with voices in languages I couldn't understand but somehow felt invited into. The taxi driver who took me to the guest house pointed out landmarks with pride, even though I didn't ask. His joy was contagious. The place I booked wasn't a five-star hotel. It was a small family-run guest house with ivy crawling up the walls and the faint scent of lemons drifting through the window. My room overlooked a quiet alley where flower boxes exploded with color. It was perfect. That first day I walked for hours. No map. No plan. I stopped when I wanted to. Ate when I was hungry. Sat by the Arno River with a coffee and watched street performers dance beneath the sunset. I wasn't rushing. I wasn't trying to please anyone. I was simply being. In the evening, I found a trattoria tucked away behind a stone archway. The waitress, a warm older woman with kind eyes, brought me pasta that melted in my mouth and insisted I try the house wine. I told her it was my first solo trip. She squeezed my shoulder and said, then this is where you begin. After dinner, I wandered back to the guest house with tired feet and a full heart. I passed a bookstore, its door still open despite the late hour. On impulse I stepped inside. The shelves were overflowing, the smell of paper and old stories wrapping around me like a blanket. I picked up a book on local photography and flipped through the pages. There were shots of sunrises over vineyards, children playing by ancient fountains, lovers laughing under umbrellas. The photos weren't perfect, they were real. Live. The shopkeeper saw me lingering and said in broken English, "You see what we see." I bought the book. Back in my room, I sat by the window and wrote again. Only this time I didn't write about pain. I didn't write about what had been taken from me. I wrote about what I was finding. Freedom. Curiosity. Possibility. I wrote about the city breathing with me. The laughter of strangers. The taste of olive oil. The shimmer of moonlight on terracotta roofs. And then, quietly, I wrote. I no longer belong to the people who only loved me when I bent. I closed the journal, exhaled, and let the cool Florence air kiss my skin. For the first time in a very long time I felt like I was home, even if just within myself. The morning sunlight filtered through the lace curtains of my guesthouse window, painting the walls with quiet gold. I lay still for a moment, letting the warmth soak into my skin, not just from the sun but from something deeper, peace. It was the first time in years I woke up without the weight of responsibility on my chest. I wasn't anyone's fixer today. I was just me. I spent the morning exploring the Mercato Central, losing myself among fresh produce, aged cheeses, handmade leather goods, and the chatter of Florentine vendors. I sipped espresso with no hurry, watching locals haggle over prices like it was an art form. I picked out a small hand-stitched journal and a delicate silver ring, tiny things that belonged solely to me. Later, I found myself on a quiet hill overlooking the city, the Duomo's dome rising proudly against the skyline. I pulled out my camera, the one I'd almost sold to cover a last-minute family emergency 2 years ago, and took photo after photo, capturing shadows, smiles, and sun-kissed rooftops. Every frame felt like a declaration. Asterisk, this moment is mine. This beauty is mine to witness. Asterisk. That evening I took a cooking class, something I'd always dreamed of but never allowed myself. The class was full of strangers who quickly became friends, laughing as we fumbled through recipes and shared stories over fresh pasta. I caught myself smiling mid-chop, realizing how effortlessly joy had returned when I stopped chasing it through other people's happiness. After dinner, I lingered outside the studio under the glow of soft street lamps. The air was scented with rosemary and smoke from nearby chimneys. My phone buzzed in my bag, and for once, I didn't flinch. I pulled it out and saw a message from my father. Asterisk, we miss you. We're sorry. Truly. Your mom keeps saying she wishes she'd seen it sooner. Lauren too. She told us what you said before you left. I don't think any of us expected you to walk away. But maybe we needed it. Asterisk. There was no guilt in his words, just quiet honesty. But even still, I stared at the message for a long time. I wasn't angry anymore, not really. But I wasn't eager to rush back either. I opened the reply window. Then I closed it. Instead, I turned my phone off and tucked it away. The city still had more to show me. The next day, I met an artist sketching in the piazza. He looked up and said, "You have the kind of face that's seen many stories." I laughed and said, "Some I'm finally ready to write for myself." And I meant it. I spent my final evening in Florence walking along the Arno, the river glowing under the lights like it was holding secrets just for me. I stopped on the Ponte Vecchio, leaned over the edge, and dropped a coin into the water. Not for luck, not for wishes, but as a symbol of all I was letting go. My family might still expect me to return as the fixer, the one who makes things right. But that person was gone. Not bitter, not broken, just free. And whatever came next, it would be on my terms. Because I had finally remembered who I was, and I wasn't going to forget again.